Good afternoon, Franklin County. This is the talk of the county with your county administrator, Kenneth Wilson. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon with Tom Homan, a true local government legend in Central Ohio. He serves in the City of Delaware as their esteemed county manager. Good morning.
Good morning, Ken. Thank you for inviting me here today, and I'm pleased to be part of this podcast.
Great to have you. We're here in Austin. You're a lot more relaxed than you were around this time last year when Franklin County and Columbus was lucky enough to host the ICMA conference.
Yeah, it feels like a big weight has been lifted from my shoulders, and that effort, which was really collaborative between the city of Columbus, Franklin County, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, was a success, and we're happy to have made it that way, and pleased that we're here this year to enjoy this conference in a different way. As you say, a little less stressful.
You know, you had the job of co-hosting along with Charlotte Connolly this conference, and I know firsthand that you were from day one saying that excellence is our only option as far as putting that conference together.
Yeah, that we set the bar high, and by all of the feedback we got, I think we hit the bar, and excellence was the kind of the watchword that we used. And Columbus and Franklin County showed well. The weather was great. Columbus always looks better when it's a nice day and the sun is out, and we actually we're very fortunate to have a lot of the pieces just fell together.
It's warmer here in this morning to noon hour time here in Austin, but Columbus and Franklin County, we had great weather as you pointed out. In that general session, I mean, talk about that. Talk about having not just a piece of the best darn band in the land, but the whole darn band.
Yeah, we were from the outset of planning the conference, we wanted to make sure that we had an exclamation point, and we wanted that to occur during the general session. So early on in the planning, the idea that we were doing this in Columbus, that Ohio State is such a big part of being in Columbus, the thought came up, let's get the band. And we were very fortunate to work with the Ohio State band and their team. And at the end of the general session, capping off the keynote speaker, in comes the Ohio State band, and they just brought down the house. I mean, there wasn't a smartphone that wasn't up in the air, taking pictures, recording the moment from the time they walked into the house, into the general session. The crowd followed them out, and that opened the conference. And it was, as you point out, was excellence, and we're quite proud of that.
Podcast listeners, Mr. Homan said it was going to be all about the pomp and circumstance, and that's just one example of what you had in mind from day one in planning this conference. So, great job. We're still hearing positive reviews. Tom, talk about your work in ICMA and how ICMA provides value to city managers.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Earlier today, I received my 40-year service award, along with a number of other members. ICMA at these annual conferences recognize managers who have 20, 25, 30, 35, all the way up to yesterday. We had somebody who had 55 years of service in local government. I have 40. I started when I was an intern in graduate school, working in a small village outside of New York City. That's when I became a member. The manager at the time recommended becoming a member of ICMA, and over the years, it's been it's been a bedrock of my professional development. The national conferences that they do every year, the regional conferences, all of the learning opportunities that they provide, the different connections with other colleagues across the country. It really helps to just kind of motivate you as a local government professional. It keeps you involved with other local government professionals, and it's an important part of our profession. I mean, ICMA, we would not be in local government without that organization supporting us. So I'm kind of a proud member of the organization. It's changed over the years under different leadership, but every year we celebrate the profession by being at these conferences.
It's about best practices and sharing best practices, and the educational sessions are extremely valuable. It's like ongoing, continuing education for local government officials, city managers, county administrators. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
That leads me to ask you about the ICMA credential manager. Why does that credentialing matter so much? I know for to be an official within ICMA, a vice president of a region, that is a commitment that is always mentioned.
Yeah, it is. I became a credentialed manager when they started the program. I can't remember how many years ago it was. I've got my credentialed manager pin here. But really, it requires a commitment to continuing education, at least 40 hours a year. Some of those hours can be spent reading. Some of those hours can be spent at educational sessions at a conference. That can be spent in any ways that better you as a professional. And ICMA recognized a number of years ago that it wanted to confirm upon managers who were committed to that 40 hours a week in that professional development, the title of credentialed manager. And increasingly, when you're looking for career opportunities, credentialed manager is often noted as something that is desirable from a governing board's perspective, from people who are looking at local government leaders.
Central Ohio is a strong region. The city of Delaware is a strong community, always ranks up there for being highly educated compared to other communities. When you look at demographic factors like the percentage of the population that has at least a bachelor's degree, percentage of the population that recycles, all of these progressive type stats. But yet, Delaware also has its rural roots. Talk a little bit about the evolution of the city of Delaware over your career, which I believe spans 25 years.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I think I'm really happy you pointed out the kind of rural agrarian history of Delaware and Delaware County. I mean, it is still everything north of Delaware. The city of Delaware is still very rural. A lot of the same farmers, farming fields, and that is an important part of our heritage. That at one point, the city of Delaware was the kind of center of Delaware County. Now increasingly, southern Delaware County, Lewis Center, Powell, Orange, Galena, all those different areas, and even Sunbury, which became a city last year, are now making Delaware County a more diverse, interesting county. And but we don't want to forget those rural roots of the county and the role that the city of Delaware played in that over the years.
I started off this interview, noting the fact that you have made quite a name for yourself in local government, and city managers, the fraternity of them, have a lot of respect for Tom Homan. As you exit, we don't know what the next chapter is, but as you have announced your exit, your retirement, what do you want the profession to have to say about Tom Homan? Final words.
I guess that he served with integrity, that he was a servant leader, that he was able to kind of navigate the challenges of local government. The last kind of during that pandemic period, that was a very, very challenging period for anybody in local government, from anybody from school superintendents to city or county managers. And I'd like to be just kind of remembered for somebody that cared about the community, that helped build the community, make it stronger, make it a more vibrant part of our Central Ohio region.
Great. Talk a little bit about the dynamic of working as a city manager with the surrounding jurisdictions you mentioned. But let's drill it in even a little bit more. How many different city councils that you worked with over your career? And what was your key to success? You know, there are sessions here at ICMA about manager council relations. To go 25 years, Tom, you had to be pretty good at it.
Well, I appreciate that, and it is kind of an accomplishment, and it has a lot to do with the governing bodies I was honored to serve with. They were very cooperative, supportive. Did they have their disagreements? Yes. Did I occasionally have disagreements with them over issues? Yes. But we were able to, over the years, find a balance between the importance of what the community goals were and keeping council engaged in that process. And that's really a lot of what you have to do. There's no shortage of managers that end up with governing bodies that don't agree with each other, and that sometimes manifests itself in going after the manager in some way. Fortunately, in Central Ohio, not just in Delaware, but Westerville, Worthington, and some of the other communities, Hilliard, there has been a considerable amount of stability, and that's helped, I think, immensely. But again, it gets back to, in my view, the way I kind of view leadership and the way the council governs, and those two things aligning correctly. And knock on wood, if it's around here somewhere, 25 years has been a really a big part of my career. My 40-year career, 25 of which has been spent here in Delaware.
Yes, we were, a lot of things happen every day within a city, both large and small. What issues kept you up at night?
Well, I think it's easy to default to COVID. Obviously, that was a crisis that none of us had anticipated. And unlike the crisis, a natural disaster, a flood or an earthquake or a hurricane, where the crisis comes, there's a cleanup, there's a response, and the crisis recedes. COVID really didn't recede. So that was obviously, in the last few years, that was definitely a situation that was very, very challenging. I think during the financial crisis in 2008, that whole period challenged us financially, challenged a lot of communities financially. That kept me up at night. How is the city going to maintain its ability to serve its residents? So that was a big deal. I think when Delaware County Bank, which was always headquartered in the city of Delaware, moved out of the city in the early aughts, was really a big, big disappointment for us. We weren't able to retain them, and that was a disappointment. But on balance, though, I've had far more mornings waking up and feeling positive about serving the community than I have had sleepless nights worrying about one thing or another. And those things happen, but they're offset greatly by all of the positive things that we've done in the community.
If I was a 20-something graduate of an MPA program, what would Tom say to influence a decision to look at municipal government?
I would say that do it, kind of follow. One way is to look at my path, which was during graduate school, I took an internship in local government. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I had a relative who was involved in local government who spoke very highly of it. I think the internship in a city manager's office, in a county administrator's office, a county manager's office, really helps to inform one about the important role that local government plays, but also just from the standpoint of working the diverse, no 2 days are the same. And it's really, I think, about serving that community and getting that positive reassurance of what you're doing is important. Whether it's helping with doing fire negotiations, whether it's helping the public works department coming up with a better way to plow a road or pave a street. All of those things factor into the fabric of what makes a community great. And being in local government, you're really at the center of where local democracy is. And yes, it does get challenging. Yes, it can be a fishbowl kind of situation. But ultimately, whether it's at the county level, the township level, or the city level, you're able to make a difference in people's lives.
Give the listeners of this podcast a profile of servant leadership from the view of a city manager.
I think servant leadership is about selfless dedication to making a community a better place and putting the needs of the community ahead of your own needs. And I think servant leadership is also about integrity, acting with integrity. ICMA is one of the bedrocks of ICMA, as you know, is the code of ethics. It's acting ethically, acting with integrity, serving people in a way that recognizes the importance of the individual in the community, but understanding you're trying to do what is good for the whole. Servant leadership is putting the good of the team, the good of the community ahead of any personal goals. And I think we all try to live that.
You talked about 40 years of total service and being recognized here by ICMA. If there was a quote for your career, what would be that quote?
Oh my, that's not an easy question to answer. I think it would be a combination of the importance of servant leadership, the importance of integrity, and really the importance of ICMA in helping build and support the profession of local government.
You know, and as a city manager, you have to manage a place where every employee is uniquely different. And today is different to being a manager than it was even 5 years ago. People place a greater premium than ever on work-life balance, and they won't compromise work-life balance. I think generations earlier felt like you had to put work pretty high up there. And you may take a week or two, and that's about it. How have you dealt with that change as a city manager?
That's been hard for me to deal with personally, but I've recognized professionally within my organization that the ability to be flexible with respect to people's schedules, their needs, needs to be more of a priority, and it has been in our organization. I think that became more pronounced during COVID when we had to change the way we worked, and we had to recognize that yes, you could work at home and get things done. And that also, I think it forced a reexamination across not just the local government workforce, but just the workforce in general, that work-life balance, the ability to be supportive of somebody's needs at home, whatever their issues are, whether it's elder care or whether it's daycare, whatever it is, that we as an employer need to recognize that and put a value on that and put policies and practices in place that support employees. Because as you point out, it's somewhat non-negotiable for a lot of folks coming into the workforce. And we've learned a lot about that at this conference.
Yes, and you know firsthand that there are important jobs in municipal government that can't be done from a home office. You can't put out a fire from your couch. You can't you can't rescue a kid that's in a tree and can't get down. you
Yeah.
can't you can't provide public services remotely. So it creates issues of equity.
Yeah.
So how have you dealt with that?
I think carefully. And I think we stipulate at the outset that there's no perfect arrangement, that we try to balance the needs of our municipal court workers who have no option. They have to come into work. A probation officer has to come into work. Somebody, the judge, the whole municipal court operation is one example of they weren't really able to deviate from the work model that we're used to. But we have recently put together a telework policy, which actually kind of formalizes what we will, as an employer, allow to happen. But equity is, that's a challenge to try to kind of balance that, especially for the uniformed services, police, fire, public works. They've got to be out there. But that's kind of always been the case. They've had that, the demand on their schedule.
And speaking of equity, now let's go a little bit further into this book of evolving public policy. Diversity is not a choice; it is a reality, and inclusion has to be purposeful. And going the next step, belonging is essential in today's workplace. Tell me some of the things that have been done in the city of Delaware in the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility space.
We started an initiative post George Floyd that was which recognized that diversity, equity, and inclusion was something that we talked about before as an organization, but not really embraced. And we put together a report for City Council that outlined a number of steps that we were going to take organizationally to work with our staff and to try to make DEI more a part of our organizational culture. And I can tell you, every time when I was considering this initiative, it was in the latter part of 2020, early part of 2021, every person I spoke with within Central Ohio in that space, who was engaged in that space already, said, you have to take the long view. This is not something that just changes overnight. It's about organizational culture and trying to get as much support and understanding about that. So we have a diversity and equity inclusion working group made up of staff members. They recently did something around the issue of international food and talked about different ways of what different cultures and food and different cultures, the importance of food and things like that. So it's a myriad of things that we need to think about. But I really, it's probably more challenging because we've had people in the community question why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why would you want to question something? I mean, I guess you can question it, but I think you want to learn about it and understand it, and figuring out ways to address it. Because I think increasingly, you talked about work-life balance. You've got generations coming into the workplace today that are going to expect this. They're going to expect to be welcomed regardless of their situation in life. And I think if they know that is happening at the organizational level from the top, that's going to help them, reassure them a little about coming in and working for the organization.
You said that well, Tom. My opinion is that individuals are going to choose an employer where diversity, equity, and inclusion is ingrained in its DNA.
Absolutely.
No exceptions whatsoever. If you're going to win and you're going to attract and retain the best people, it's got to be in the DNA. It can't be a class. It's got to be more than just a class.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I think when I came back to the comment about the long view, it just, to change a culture, to change an organizational work culture takes commitment, takes time, takes a lot of energy. But you gotta keep working at it.
Spartan's will.
That's right.
Now that's a little tidbit here. Tom and I both are proud Michigan State University graduates.
Yes.
And trying to do well in Ohio. You put in 4 decades of service. I put in 3 decades. So Michigan State is contributing every single day.
Yeah, and I'll
to
shout
Central
out
Ohio.
That's right. And I'll shout out and say James Madison College. It was a big part of that, the residential college in the social sciences, and that made a big difference. And they didn't hold it against me in 1998 when I interviewed for the job in Delaware. That was the year that Michigan State, I think, upset Ohio State's chances of a Rose Bowl. I remember there was a lot of mourning going on, but they didn't hold it against me. I think if I had maize and blue on, they may have.
You're right. I mean, James Madison College put me on a course that I didn't see coming the day I stepped on that campus in East Lansing. It was really a game changer as far as directing me towards service.
Yeah.
My priorities were different from what I thought my career would look like. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
Because public service is everything for me. And that's what makes it hard to not talk all day. And this is supposed to be a podcast. I could ask you questions all day. We could just conversate.
Sure.
And just talk about government and the work. But we don't have that much time, so I got to try to wrap this up.
All right.
And tell me a fun fact. Tell me a fun fact about Tom.
I love to cook, and I have my leadership staff at my house every year in the spring after we've adopted the budget over for pizza.
Now I
love to cook.
That makes you a popular guy because there are a lot of people that like to eat. So if you invite them over and you're a good cook,
breaking bread with people is always a great way to start conversations, and I enjoy cooking. I love to. I'm kind of a multitasker to begin with, and cooking is a lot about multitasking.
Okay, what is Tom's master dish? What have you mastered?
Oh my gosh, my kids would say roll-ups for dinner. You know, just coming home and taking a flour tortilla and throwing a bunch of stuff on it, but that's kind of low budget stuff. But what have I mastered? I think pizza I'm good at. I'm good at trying stir fry. I enjoy that. I mostly enjoy just the result of cooking and bringing people together, and just as you say, people love to eat, and there's always great conversations around.
So the kitchen is somewhat of a creative escape.
Yeah, it is. It can be. Yeah.
Creative escape.
Yeah. Another fun fact is I love to exercise. I do it 6 days a week, and I think that's helped my work-life balance. It's part of self-care, which wasn't really in our vocabulary a few years ago, but I've been practicing self-care with a group of friends in Delaware for the last 24 years. We work out together, swim, bike, and run. So
that explains how a guy could be in great shape like you, but like to cook and like pizza.
In part, yeah, in part. So it's but yeah, I love to exercise. It's kind of part of my DNA, but it's helped.
Well, you know, I this conversation has been really enlightening. I hope for those that listen to this podcast. I'm planning in the future to bring people like you and sit down and talk to them about their careers and continue to, much like we work with organizations like ICMA and the National Association of Counties, that's to elevate local government, be it county government, city government, because there's so much that we do to impact the lives of our residents. And in Franklin County, we're dedicated to every resident every day. And we want to recruit people that understand the mission of every resident every day. So thank you, Tom, for being my on the Talk of the County and one of the first people to sit down and talk to a Central Ohio local government legend, City Manager Tom Homan. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Ken. Thanks a lot.